All right, guys. So obviously we have UFC Freedom 250 coming up in June, and I'm going to share with you guys my completely accurate and correct opinions and predictions on how these fights are going to go and why. Starting off, we have Diego Lopez and Steve Garcia. So starting off with Diego Lopez, he does have a lot of things going for him going into this fight. Starting off with his wealth of experience, he's fought the best of the best in his division. Um, he has tons of power in his hands, and he's just an overall really, really strong opponent when it comes on to especially his striking. He's a very dynamic striker and has tons of power in his hands. Only thing I have to say that might play against him here is the fact that he sometimes runs out of ideas and can have a mediocre fight IQ. As we saw this play out against Alexander Volkanovski, where he wasn't seeing a lot of success, and then he got kind of frustrated and kind of went back to the same string of attacks, and when they weren't working he just kind of got frustrated and didn't switch up the game plan to any great degree. So that's the really only negative thing I have to say about Lopez. But in general, I think he's in a very good position when it comes down to this fight. And now when we have someone like Steve Garcia, who is a very high pressure, insane type of pace type of fighter, and he's pinpoint accurate. I could be wrong on this, so one of you guys fact check me. But I do think that Garcia is the more accurate striker if we were to look at it on a statistical basis. So I do think that Garcia is going to be able to get his shots off in this fight. However, I do think the moment that Lopez connects with a string of, high, significant strike type attacks, I don't think pardon me, I don't think that Garcia is going to be able to tank that because he does have a questionable chin. He has been dropped, a few times in his career. So I think that proclivity to being dropped is going to play in Lopez's favor. And I do think that Diego Lopez is going to come out on top in this fight. Moving on, we have Bo Nickel versus Kyle Dawkins. This is an interesting one, but before I get to that, how did these guys make it above or higher on the card than Lopez and Garcia? That makes no sense to me at all. Because objectively speaking, Lopez and Garcia are far more entertaining fights than Nickel and Dawkins. But anyway, moving on. For Bo Nickel, he's a very good wrestler. He's young and hungry. And yeah, it's really about all that he has going for him, to be honest, because his striking is kind of mid. There's nothing really special there to talk about versus when you have someone like Kyle Dawkins. He's very experienced, and he is a pretty decent striker, and he has some power, in the tank there. So I do think that we could see a finish here in this fight on the side of Kyle Dawkins. I do think he's going to get the better of Bo Nickel, largely because we've seen Bo Nickel crumble when the stakes get high. He's kind of been fed cans for a large part of his UFC career, and I don't think that that's going to really serve him well when it comes on to someone like Kyle Dawkins. I mean, we see what happens when someone like Bo Nickel fought a better competition in Rainier de Ritter, and he kind of crumbled under that pressure and couldn't sustain the hype behind him. So I do think that Kyle Dawkins is going to come out on top here. Now we're moving on to Mauricio Rufy versus Michael Chandler. This one is a very, very bad matchup for Michael Chandler. I think Rufy is, like I put here, is like he's one of the most creative strikers in the 155 division. He's very sneaky with his power. Like, you wouldn't look at him and think he's a power puncher, but you see him get in the ring and connect with his shots. He's putting guys on the ground, and he really is one of the more creative guys in 155. And I think the only really negative thing here about Rufi is that he has subpar or questionable grappling. I'm not sure if he's worked on that since losing to Benoit Saint Denis, but if he hasn't, then this is going to be a large area of improvement that we will need to see from Rufi if he wants to beat someone like Michael Chandler. But the thing is that Michael Chandler, I don't think he has the fight IQ to try and grapple Rufi. He's going to try and stand with him, box with him, strike with him, and that is going to play against Michael Chandler in this fight, to be completely honest with you. But the thing is, Mike, He's very, very powerful. He's in great shape. But the thing is, like I said before, he's going to try and stand and bang with Rufi, and that's going to be a big mistake because Rufi's he's too precise. He's too accurate. And he hits too hard, man. So I don't think that this fight is going to leave round two. I'm going to predict a round. I'm going to say round two TKO from Mauricio Rufi against Michael Chandler. So that is my take on that fight. Now, moving on, we have Josh Hokett versus Derek Lewis. Now. This one's a very toss-up sort of fight, because Hokett, he's on the up and up, and I think the UFC's trying to promote him and push him because he's very, very good at getting under your skin. But he's actually not bad at heavyweight, man. People sort of write off Josh Hokett simply because he talks a lot, but he's very fast for a heavyweight, you know. I think he went to the NFL and then went on to do wrestling either before or after. I can't remember, but he's actually very athletic for a heavyweight and can actually, land some punches. He's not the most accurate guy, but he's definitely one that you can't look over. But the only thing about him is that, as we saw in the Curtis Blades fight, he lacks head movement. He's very easy to hit. Curtis Blades isn't the most accurate guy, but we saw Curtis Blades have no problems landing shots on Josh Hokett. So for that reason, Derek Lewis also does have some, he has some chess pieces to work with here. And if we look at Derek Lewis's side of things, if he hits you pretty much at all, honestly, full force, you're dead. He kind of has this way of moving where he's not the fastest guy at heavyweight. I would argue that Hokett's a lot faster than Derek Lewis, but the thing is he's unpredictable. I know you guys remember that fight where Derek Lewis, he was losing for the entire fight against Alexander Volkov. And then in the last 10 seconds, Lewis knocks him out, unleashes a flurry of punches and knocks him out. So Lewis is very unpredictable, and I don't know that Hokett can tank one of those hits from Derek Lewis if he unloads on him, right? Only thing about Lewis is that he wilts under pressure, and whenever the competition gets too much and the lights are too bright, he kind of shies away from that, and I don't think that's going to do well against someone like Josh Hokett, because Hokett, he welcomes that energy. He's very fast, and he loves that hype, that adrenaline dump, and I think he's going to thrive in that sort of chaotic environment, whereas Lewis, he is a little bit more slow, and that type of chaos might overwhelm him. So I think I'm going to lean Josh Hokett here. I think he's going to win probably by unanimous decision. I don't think he's going to finish Lewis. I would be shocked if he finished Lewis, not because Lewis can't be finished, but because that would pretty much spell out that Hokett is a genuine competitor at heavyweight, because right now I'm not completely sold, but I do think Hokett can beat Derek Lewis here. So that's my prediction. I think Hokett is going to beat Lewis probably by unanimous decision on this fight. Moving on, we have Sean O'Malley versus Ayman Zahabi. I'm going to be honest, guys. I don't think Zahabi is going to win this fight. Under Petr Yan, Sean O'Malley is the second best current striker at bantamweight. He has great cardio. Only thing is, he's pretty much incapable of stopping takedowns. I mean, we saw this against Yan. We saw this against Merab. Pretty much, if you wrestle Sean O'Malley, he is going to go to the ground, 100%. But with Ayman Zahabi, he's also, a cardio strong fighter. He's a pretty decent grappler as well. So maybe if Zahabi can get a takedown off on O'Malley, he can string together some decent ground and pound, maybe a submission. But the thing about Zahabi is that he's often dropped on the feet when facing high-level strikers. I mean, we saw this against Chito Vera. We saw this against Jose Aldo, who kneed him in the nose and sent him flying across the octagon. That was an insane fight. And someone like Sean O'Malley, I do think that he's going to be able to capitalize off of that weakness, is that he is susceptible to eating knees up the middle. And Sean O'Malley loves throwing those knees up the middle. So I think Sean O'Malley might actually knock out Ayman Zahabi in round 3 via TKO. I think it's going to happen something like this. Sean O'Malley is going to be putting on the pressure. Ayman Zahabi's, trying to move and shake around it. And then O'Malley's going to land a nasty elbow or knee. He's going to go down. And then, Sean O'Malley's going to, drop down the ground and pound from there. So I don't think that Zahabi's going to come out of this one, but I guess we'll see. Moving on, we have really, this is my main event, to be honest. Alex Pereira versus Ciryl Gane. And for Alex, I mean, he's honestly the most decorated and accomplished kickboxer in UFC history. Hardest hitting 205er of all time. There's what can you really say negatively about Pereira except for the fact that, he has questionable grappling, which can be argued that, Glover Teixeira has been working with him on that grappling. So it's not a crazy thing to say that Pereira has improved in that regard. But he definitely does have a questionable chin, which we've seen be tested at 185. Now, you could also argue that, since he's at a lower weight class at 85, his chin is going to be worse, which is a fair argument. But at the same time, we have seen him knocked out before. So it's not crazy to assume or think that it can't happen again. And if we look at Ciryl Gane, he's ridiculously fast for heavyweight, possibly the smoothest moving heavyweight of the modern era, excellent kickboxer, but similar to Pereira, he has questionable grappling. So we already know how this fight's going to go. It's going to be a stand-up battle. These two guys are going to bang it out. And because I think that's the case, my money is on Alex Poatan Pereira. I don't think that Ciryl Gane is as skilled as Pereira. I don't think he has the measured stalking type mode of attack as Alex Pereira. And I do think that Pereira is going to get it done. I don't know about how it's going to happen, but I would not be surprised if we see a reincarnation of the Alex Pereira versus Kilo Roundtree, where in round 4, Alex just hits the flow state and just, unloads clean shots on Ciryl Gane, ending the fight in round 4. I could see that happening. But yeah, my pick for this fight is Alex Pereira, not because I don't respect Gane's skill, but I just think that Alex Pereira is that much better than Ciryl Gane. And lastly, the fight that everyone's waiting for, we have Ilia Topuria versus Justin the Highlight Gaethje, right? I honestly feel bad for Gaethje in this fight, to be honest with you, because yes, he's the most violent 155er ever. Yes, he hits like a truck, but he has two glaring weaknesses that Ilia will undoubtedly take advantage of. And that is the fact that he has a questionable chin and a questionable fight IQ. I can't really tell you the last time that I've seen Gaethje do something genuinely intelligent in the octagon. I just couldn't tell you, you know? And these are mistakes that Ilia is undoubtedly going to take advantage of, given that I think Ilia is the hardest hitting 155er of all time, Greco-Roman wrestler and BJJ black belt. He's the most skilled boxer the UFC has ever seen. However, he is susceptible to head kicks. So if Justin Gaethje is able to take advantage of that and throw some head kicks and hide them, I think Gaethje can make this fight competitive. I'm not going to say that Gaethje is going to win because I think that is highly unlikely, but he can make the fight competitive. Ilia also has one of the best fight IQs, I think ever in the UFC. And I think he is probably aware that Justin is, probably planning to throw some head kicks at him. So he's, watching that. And I think he's going to knock out Justin Gaethje probably in round 1 or 2. That I don't see this fight going to round 3. I definitely don't see this fight going to round 5. And I don't think that this is the way that Americans are going to want to see Justin Gaethje, on the White House lawn unconscious. But unfortunately, due to the matchmakers, that is exactly what is going to happen. So my prediction here is Ilia Topuria by round 2 knockout. Brutal overhand is going to put Gaethje out to sleep. And that's going to be the end of the UFC 250 card. Let me know if you guys agree, disagree, if you guys think I'm a retard, whatever it may be, let me know. And I would love to debate you guys in the comments. Peace.